Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Delaney McLeod, and welcome to What's the Deal with Disabilities? The Triangle celebrates 30 years of the ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. We are so excited that you've chosen to spend your lunch hour with us, and we promise to deliver an incredible program. Today, you're going to hear from some amazing trailblazers in our community who are thriving in their lives and careers and demonstrate that nothing will stop them from achieving their dreams. But there's still much work to be done if we want to be truly inclusive of people of all abilities. At my companies, Walk West and the Diversity Movement, we prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as I said, if we are to be truly inclusive, then we need to be thinking about the many people who contribute to our society in meaningful ways with all abilities. We do have a few housekeeping notes that we'd like to share with everyone today, including some Zoom tips. First of all, we are incredibly grateful to the City of Raleigh for sponsoring our sign language interpreters. And if the sign language interpreters who have joined us for our event today, if you could please put in the message your actual name so that our team can be able to connect with you and be able to get the sign language interpreters available for all of our attendees to watch. We also want to thank Raleigh, North Carolina, who is providing live captioning services for us as well. So if you need live captioning, please select that in your Zoom dashboard. Also, if you would like to enlarge any of the screens, whether it's the sign language interpreter or the person who is speaking, you can pin that specific window in Zoom by clicking on the upper right-hand corner. Also, we have the chat feature enabled, so if you have any questions or comments as we go through the program, please send us, and we are going to be monitoring those, and toward the end of the program, we are going to be having a Q&A. So let's get started with a video that shows us how impactful the ADA has been and changed lives over the last 30 years.
How has the Americans with Disabilities Act empowered you?
Because of the ADA, I have the power to defend my rights as a citizen with a disability.
I am able to work with organizations focused on the disability rights cause.
I am able to earn a college degree.
I have access to competitive employment.
I am able to attend college, be independent, and advocate for myself and others.
As a gay person with a disability, I have the right to participate in all aspects of society.
Because of the ADA, I have a foundation that provides people with disabilities, like me, the support for our rights as human beings and Americans.
Because of the ADA, I am able to adapt and overcome the onset of my disability.
I am meeting more and more disabled mentors in the workforce, and I hope to mentor a disabled member.
I'm a loud, proud disabled woman.
But if you had one wish to improve the ADA, what would you wish for? We can see that disability invites us all to believe in different expressions of beauty and of being.
But I wish people didn't give me dirty looks on public transportation when I don't pick up my seat because they think I'm not disabled.
But I wish people would treat me with the same respect as my brother and sister.
Social, economic, and educational disparities for people with disabilities were more significantly reduced.
The accommodations process for hiring exams was improved.
I wouldn't be excluded from going to Lincoln just because they have steps but no ramps or elevators.
Transportation was more accessible.
The legal grade of income should be much lower so that my culture will be less likely to follow.
Violence against people with disabilities is more widely recognized.
My disability can be seen as a symbol of strength, not weakness.
But I wish accommodation was perceived as a form of social assurance rather than as a burden.
But I wish the ADA was set up so
disabilities were respected as a legitimate minority.
Society was more accepting of people regardless of difference.
Having heard our perspectives, here's what you can do.
You can make DC a model for the country by providing a wide range of accessible taxes.
You can support and pass the Workforce Investment Act by giving everyone access to competitive, integrated employment.
You can support the Keeping All Students Safe Act, which would prevent and reduce the use of physical restraint and seclusion in schools.
You can vote to ratify or otherwise support the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which will advance the rights of disabled people around the world.
Lead on. Special thanks to AAPD, Georgetown University, Patrick Nelson, and the HSC Foundation.
So as you can see, there has been so much great work done over the last 30 years, but there is much left to be done, as we saw toward the end of that video. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce one of our co-chairs for this event. It is John Samuel, who is the Chief Innovation Architect at LCI Tech. Hi, John.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you so much. This is awesome. You know, I'm so excited to be here and have you guys all attending this event. Full transparency, that was my first time actually watching that video, and I loved it. So that was so cool. You know, the idea for this event actually came as part of the planning for the Employer Resource Day for the Raleigh Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. And this year, I was tasked with doing that job, and as COVID came upon us, the planning kind of slowed down, and I didn't think that event was actually going to happen. And then I started to think about, you know, traditionally this event happened around the day that the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed, and this year was a big one. It's the 30th anniversary. And that's when I realized that the ADA was not the result of the work of just a few individuals, but rather the coming together of partners and allies to pass this landmark bill. And that's what we did. We decided to bring together a bunch of partners together to really celebrate today's event. And so today we brought together the Raleigh Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities, the Raleigh Chamber, the Capital Area Workforce Development Board, NC State's Office of Equity Affairs, the DEI Alliance, the Baering Group, the Diversity Movement, Walk West, LCI Tech, and LCI. That's a lot of partners, but that's what we really call a partnership. On top of this amazing collaboration of partners, Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin also proclaimed that July 26, 2020, in the city of Raleigh would be Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day. That's pretty cool. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to attend today's event, but she wanted to send a video and welcome you all. So let's check that out.
Hello, I'm Mary Ann Baldwin, Mayor of Raleigh. I'm proud to welcome you to this very special event as we celebrate 30 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act. On behalf of the City of Raleigh and the Raleigh City Council, I'm proud to be a part of this important recognition. Raleigh has a long-standing commitment to the ADA. Our regular meeting group that is now the Raleigh Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities has been in place since at least 1964. More than 50 years, 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act became law in 1990. In those 50 years, we have made tremendous strides, and we continue to work to make Raleigh more welcoming and accommodating for those with disabilities. And we continue to make forward movement in this area. In the last several years, all of the city's facilities and programs, including parks and recreation facilities and greenways, were reviewed and evaluated to be sure we are being inclusive. And we've identified areas where there are barriers that needed to be removed. Staff has projected a time frame to bring each one into compliance, and we're actively working on improvements. We're extremely excited to be selected to host the 2020 LEAD conference, that's Leadership Exchange in Arts and Disability. The conference would have been the first week in August, but has been canceled due to COVID. Perhaps as recent as 3 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to host this conference. Expanded opportunities with those with disabilities by reducing barriers, changing perception, and increasing opportunities is important to me and to everyone on the City Council. Inclusion makes us all stronger and our community better. I'm proud to have proclaimed July 26th as Americans with Disabilities Act Awareness Day in Raleigh. Thank you for all you do to support and bring attention to the importance of inclusion, for supporting and working on behalf of those with disabilities, for making our community and our state stronger. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Baldwin. She was so quick to give us a reply when we asked for her help in providing an official welcome, as well as the proclamation from the City of Raleigh. Without hesitation, she said yes. So we thank you so much, Mayor Baldwin, and your staff for your support with our event. A reminder, if you would like to pin the video with the sign language interpreter, all you have to do is go to the upper right-hand corner of the window and click on it, and you can enlarge that window if you desire to have the sign language interpreter as a pinned larger screen on your computer. All right, we're going to move on now to our panelists, which we have an exciting group of people who are going to be sharing their stories with you. They represent the 4 areas of disability that are included in the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that includes auditory, visual, cognitive, and mobility. I'm going to start by introducing Quan Laseth. Quan is the Manager of Business Development at LCI Tech, and he's responsible for developing a pipeline of new business to create new employment opportunities in technology for people who are low vision and blind. Quan started his career in banking at Wells Fargo Home Mortgage and moved on to the nonprofit sector, where he worked for the National Industries for the Blind. Next on our panel is Philip Woodward. Philip is a systems change manager at North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities. He works collaboratively with state and federal government agencies and nonprofit organizations to achieve systems change that allows people with intellectual and other disabilities to fully integrate into their communities. A graduate of William & Mary's undergraduate program, as well as William & Mary's Law School, Philip is a true community connector who makes people of all abilities feel part of the community. Next is Ellen Perry. Ellen has been a self-advocate for more than 40 years. She owns and operates a small business called Advocacy in Action, and she speaks around the country on issues related to self-advocacy, rights, responsibilities, and access for people with disabilities. She is committed to her work as she helps people with disabilities live as independently as possible in the communities of their choice. And next we have Chris Hendricks, who has traveled around the United States and the world sharing his music with people in Canada and Europe, playing in everything from arenas in the US, even to the Louvre in Paris. Chris has written pieces and scores for multiple shows and platforms, including the theme song for Hulu's Radical Dating. Chris is also a professional speaker, writer, and entrepreneur, and his passion project is co-founding the social emotional empowerment nonprofit platform called Perfectly Afflicted, dedicated to reminding youth of their worth and value through entertainment and the arts. And our moderator for the panel discussion is Eric Dixon. Eric is the president and CEO of Pro Safety Management, which is a safety consulting and educational company located here in Raleigh. He specializes in personal and corporate safety, and Eric's company also provides facility management and ADA consulting, as well as training in ADA implementation for commercial industries and government agencies, nonprofit business, and community partners. Welcome, everyone. Eric, take it away.
Morning. I'd like to say welcome to the panel as well. Our first question this morning will go out to Philip. Philip, what are some of the unconscious biases that you have experienced in the workplace?
Hi, everyone. This is Philip Woodward. Um, Unconscious biases that I have experienced in the workforce, the workplace, include people covering their mouth when talking to me because I am a hard of hearing person and I need to be able to read lips or a visual cue to see. Another unconscious bias would be somebody, a team leader, deciding to call the meeting the very next morning and not give us enough time to find a sign language interpreter or make other arrangements for effective communication. So those are some things for people and coworkers and team leaders to keep in mind when working with people with disabilities, particularly who are deaf or hard of hearing like me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Chris, I have a question for you. In your career, what are some of the things that employers have done to make you feel welcome and like you belong there?
There have been several instances in my career in the arts. It's always been easy for me to find someone who can carry all the equipment necessary to perform and help me be set up properly before a show so that I can feel relaxed and able to do my best. In the corporate world, whenever I have worked for a larger company, I've been fortunate to have supervisors who have always made it a priority to make sure that if I needed to rest, take extra time as a result of my cerebral palsy diagnosis, that was afforded to me, and I've always been given extra time to get to and from places and to and from work. So those are just a few of the many examples.
That's very good. Quan, I have a question for you, and this one is a big one. When the ADA was passed, President Bush made it clear that this law was not only going to help the disability community, but also the business community. He said it would provide, quote, new sources of workers, unquote. Yet after 30 years, we still have a high unemployment, for people with disabilities. What do you think employers need to know about this untapped talent to change the narrative?
Thank you, Eric. I believe we have come a long way from where we were at 30 years ago, and we have a long way to go. I would say what the employers would need to know and what I would try to stress for them is that a person with a disability brings a different perspective, a different set of skills, and a different set of understanding that will ultimately help their company with their final product or service to their general population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's real good. Ellen,
yes.
What does the ADA mean to you?
The ADA is a very unique law because it gives us rights that we did not have before. Before the ADA law, people with disabilities were hidden away. A lot of people did not have the ability even to vote. People with disabilities did not have the ability to vote.
Okay. Well,
and I think voting is very important.
You're absolutely right. Thank you very much. Philip, I have a second question for you. There has been a lot of progress since the passing of the ADA, but where do you think the gaps still remain? That's for Philip.
This is Philip here. Some of the biggest gaps in the ADA are community participation. By that, I mean community living. For example, in North Carolina, we have 14,000 individuals with intellectual or other developmental disabilities who are on the Innovation Waiver Waiting List, also known as the Registry of Unmet Needs, waiting to receive services that will help them live independently in the community and participate in the community. So once people truly have the choice and the freedom to do what they want day to day and not be stuck living in an institution or a facility setting, that will erase one of the big gaps that still remains. We also have employment gaps, and we would like to see more people with disabilities have equal access to competitive integrated employment opportunities, and more attitudinal barriers to help people with disabilities be appreciated and acknowledged every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Chris, I have a question for you. What advice do you have for others with your type of disability when it comes to building a successful career?
Hi there, Chris Hendricks here. I love getting that question because I think currently there is far too much emphasis on the sometimes intangible qualities, intangible positive qualities of somebody with a condition. For example, persons with disabilities have such big hearts, etc. There's something very Walt Disney World about that. And so while that's true, the advice that I would share with someone who has my condition, focus on the tangible positives of your condition. For example, the fact that you have cerebral palsy makes you immediately memorable. It also creates a sense of immediate vulnerability. You were born into this world adapting, whereas other people had to take a lot more time to figure out how to adapt to issues. It has been your life's mission to adapt. Persons with conditions, statistically and tangibly, tend to overcompensate. And so in the workforce, we tend to focus on doing a better job overall as a result of our condition, as opposed to if we did not. So those are some tangible positives.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ellen, I have a question for you. What changes, physical or attitudinal, have you seen in our society over the last 30 years?
Of course, ramps and public buildings so that people in wheelchairs can get around. There are curb cuts that help people who are visually impaired get off the ramp. And we were the first in Carborough to have that. I can't think of the word. Maybe y'all can. Juan, can you help me? It's the bubble top. It's a tactile.
Braille?
The tactile stuff.
Are you mentioning Braille? Talking about Braille?
No, the stuff that's on the ground.
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about. The
bubble.
Yeah, the raised bubbles.
Yeah, the
technical
raised
bubbles, yes.
Yeah, the raised
the tactile cutouts.
We were the first in North Carolina. We were the first in the United States to have that.
Very good, very good. Well, Quan, she kind of led you into the next question.
Sorry.
That's all right. What accessibility technologies do you use in your daily life that the general public may not know about?
That is a great question. After going through school and working on my undergrad and graduate degree, it's amazing how many people ask me, how are you going to do this job? How are you going to access the information on the computer? And, you know, my favorite tool since being visually impaired about 20 plus years is the JAWS screen reader. It's the ability to, it's that software that allows me to understand and read and, you know, gain that information that's located on the computer and hear it in my audio or in my headset. Thank you.
That's good. That's good. Chris, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about the disability community?
The biggest for me is a perceived lack of intellect and a perception that we are not good communicators, primarily on the receiving end. I've had multiple experiences where someone has, for lack of a better metaphor, felt they needed to dumb down or simplify something because they assumed that I didn't understand it. And it's always my pleasure to prove them wrong in the moment with, no vindictive anything attached to that. It's just a little internal smile I get to have each time.
It's very good. Philip, I have a question for you. What kinds of things do people do unknowingly that you find annoying? Things like maybe leaning on a coworker's wheelchair or patronizing behavior. What type of things you find annoying that they don't know that they're doing?
This is Philip here. As I pointed out earlier, if you're communicating with the person who's deaf or hard of hearing and you're covering your mouth or turning away, that makes it difficult for us because we need some type of visual cue. Something else that I find annoying that I've worked hard to change is the language that we use to describe people with disabilities, and particularly the language that the media uses. I've read a lot of articles about people with disabilities where the media uses terms like handicapped and hearing impaired, whereas people's first language would be better to use, such as person with a disability, or accessible parking instead of handicap parking, or deaf or hard of hearing person instead of hearing impaired person. So that's something that I would like to see if you use more respectful language that conveys respect for the person. That's what we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Ellen, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How has the ADA specifically impacted your life?
It has given me the freedom to walk up and down the road without feeling like I am going to fall. The sidewalks were so hard to get the curb cut. There were no curb cuts except for one in Carborough. And that one was near my home. And that one is still there. But they've had to make curb cuts. Also, the buses, the ADA has given us the freedom to get on a bus and go from one place to another. The ADA law makes towns more accessible for people with disabilities.
Thank you very much. I agree with you 100% on that one. Kwan, you have the pleasure of getting the last question.
All right.
What hobbies do you like? And here's the other good part of it. Does your disability interfere with your ability to enjoy them, or how have you made adjustments?
That's a great question. Hobbies. So I have several hobbies. I like to work out, I like to run, but I would say my favorite hobby is spending time with my kids. And that could go from just watching the television show with audio descriptive. So I'm able to kind of follow along and understand what's going on and engage with my children that way. Or even using like Braille Uno cards. We're learning colors or learning numbers with the kids. So I would say there's a slight modification due to assistive technology, but it hasn't interfered with my hobbies. No. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That completes our questions for our panelists. And I'd like to say thank you to each of our panelists for being here, providing us with some very valuable information. At this time, I'd like to ask each of our panelists if you would please turn off your microphones and your cameras as we go back to John. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. That was awesome, really insightful. Again, this is John Samuel, and we just really want to thank again Eric and the panel for a really insightful discussion. As I was looking, kind of listening to it, there was a couple of key takeaways that I took, and I'll share them at the end. But really, would love to have you guys all think about what are the key takeaways you're going to have as you leave this event, because that's really what it's about. But now I'm excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Mike Thor, or more commonly known as Thor, who is the co-owner of Whiskey Kitchen, a wildly popular restaurant here in the Raleigh area. And in fact, this year, Thor and his partner were actually awarded the Restaurateurs of the Year by the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association. And so we're super excited and honored to have him here to share his story. So without further ado, here's Thor.
Hi, everybody. I would really like to take a moment and thank you all for joining us today and helping us celebrate this 30th anniversary of the ADA. So times are dictating that we analyze where we're at, question what we need, what we think is right, and pivot depending on the answers. The pursuit of knowledge and understanding of one another is crucial now more than ever to redefining the laws and social rules that govern us. I've not been a member of this community for very long, so we're lucky to have such a wonderful panel that has so much more information on a wider variety of disabilities than I have myself. I can only provide insight to my personal experience, but I am very grateful to the ADA and what has been accomplished. But we still have a long ways to go. I hated the ADA when we were under construction of Whiskey Kitchen. I was not yet a person with a disability. I was an able-bodied person that didn't quite understand the needs of the needs and the requirements that the ADA are putting forward. Still, it didn't affect me whatsoever. It didn't affect anybody that I knew. So the whole time we were going through construction, I was irritated, I guess would be the best word, at all the modifications we were going to be required to make. It was very frustrating, but now I'm incredibly lucky that the ADA was there to enforce those rules, as now I'm able to quite easily access the building, and I can take a pee in the building without having to go outside and empty into a bush. So, scroll please. I want to talk a little bit about myself and the accident. So November 20th, 2015, really started out as any other day. I was just opening my first business, a restaurant at that, and it's a very stressful time. And so I woke up with a laundry list of to-dos that I set right out on accomplishing. I got up, took a shower, just like anybody else. My wife, Sarah was in her office on a business call, which is notoriously been my favorite time to mess with her. So I did this little naked dance and got her into one of the hardest giggle fits ever. Her giggle fits are very well known amongst the people that know her. They are so cute. I love them so much. But so anyway, so got her laughing, interrupted her meeting, went to my first meeting of the day, and then went and met her for lunch at Sosta Cafe. It's one of my favorite places in Raleigh. And she had not yet been, so I wanted to share it with her. While we were there had been we were talking about an accident that had occurred in Raleigh just a few days before, where some scaffolding fell off of a building that was being cleaned. In Raleigh, it fell down and it hit somebody and killed them. And so we were talking about how crazy it is that at any moment in time, something can happen that can alter your life or even end your life. And so it's a little, crazy that we're talking about that, because after we finished lunch, I hopped on my motorbike to head towards home, and on my way home, I was coming up on a woman that was driving in the left lane. I was in the right lane, coming up on her a little bit. She didn't see me. She merged over into me and sent me headfirst into a utility pole. I fractured my C2 vertebrae and got there's a lot of swelling. So it was just a hairline fracture, and the big injury that I got was essentially because nothing was done to prevent the swelling in my neck, and nothing had displaced in my spine, so there was no surgery, which didn't allow the swelling anywhere to go. And so it swelled, it bruised, and then it scarred. And that's the injury that I'm working through these days. And so I guess the first bit of the accident, when I woke up in the hospital, I was telling people, give me 2 months. I'll be back at it. And then once 2 months passed, so once 2 months passed, I started saying 18 months. And then when 18 months came by, I started to set smaller, more realistic goals for me. And it just goes to show that it's wild how you can be totally aware of your circumstances, and that I knew that I couldn't move. And that was going to be an obstacle to overcome, but I did not realize that I was going to have to figure out how to live a brand new life. And so it is just wild. It's really hard to live this way, being totally dependent on others. I can't do what I want, when I want, how I want, or where I want. I have to rely on somebody to get me ready to go to all of these places, do all of these things. Every situation is different. So you're constantly having to plan out your day. When I was used to living my life with total spontaneity and freedom, it has been stripped. So I guess, when you're struggling with dehumanization at a basic level, where it's like, I can't scratch my face, I can't feed myself, I can't give myself water, I can't go to the bathroom on my own. In order to go poop, someone has to come in and stick their finger up my butt. I'm watching the sign language interpreter right now, and it's quite funny. So it's really tough when you're trying to deal with this dehumanization, and then it gets even more amplified when when society and infrastructure are not meant for you so much. So I recognize just how lucky I am, despite all the complaints I just laid out for you, in that I have a very strong support system and a very strong profession. I'm so lucky that I opened Whiskey Kitchen prior to this accident. I could not imagine trying to go through this without any sort of purpose in life, with no income coming in, especially. And that's what we're kind of about to dive into now, is how disabilities, like accidents that cause disabilities like this. And I can't speak to other people. Once again, this is just myself, but my accident is taking a severe toll financially. And there's some things that we'll visit later on that will explain all that. But I want to show just I want to point out a few of these facts that are on your screen right now. I was unaware until doing research for this speech that people with disabilities are legally allowed to be paid less than minimum wage if they can't perform a job as well as an able-bodied person. Minimum wage in this state right now is $7.25, I believe. And that's not enough to live on for a regular person, let alone someone that has all the expenses that a person living with disabilities has. Over a quarter of people with disabilities say that they do not frequently have choice and control over their daily lives. That is totally exemplified in all the struggles I just mentioned that I have personally with my life. People with disabilities most regularly navigate a world that wasn't built for us. Only buildings after 1990, which is when the ADA was signed, must comply with ADA regulations. If you're going to renovate a building, such as we did with Whiskey Kitchen, that was built prior to 1990, we exceeded 20% of the cost of the building at that time with our renovations. So it is only buildings that were built after 1990 or pre-1990 buildings that have been renovated to a certain point that are required to give people like myself access. So there are so many places in the US, let alone the world, that I just can't visit because they are not set up for wheelchair accessibility. So keep going. Kind of lost where I was at. Oh, sorry. People with disabilities are significantly more likely to be victims of crime. I personally roll around with my iPad on. With my iPhone on a little holder that at any point in time somebody could come up and take. I've been lucky in that has not been something I've had to deal with yet, but it is absolutely there. We are a susceptible community in that I cannot defend myself against any predator of any sorts. And most people don't live in a very welcoming community like Raleigh, where you can pretty much trust yourself with strangers all over the place. I personally utilize strangers on the streets for so many different things. Stretching my arm, giving me pills, picking me up something that I've dropped along the way. Last little piece is that people with disabilities are 4 times more likely to report being treated badly by healthcare professionals and 3 times more likely to be denied healthcare altogether. The disabled community is the only community that does not discriminate. It does not matter your age, your sex, your race, your sexual preference, your religious preference, how much money you have, how physically capable you are. At any point in time, any one of you, us, even myself included, can experiencing that life-altering event. It could happen this afternoon. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen next week, next month. It doesn't matter. We are all susceptible to becoming a part of the disabled community at any point in time. Insurance needs to be well more proactive than it is reactive. It does not provide access to regular therapy. You get a very small number of visits a month from therapists. And so I do therapy at least 5 days a week. So I would run out of the therapy that my insurance provides in under a month. And that goes for all of my physical therapy, all of my massage therapy, any other, what's the word? Any other alternative therapies or medicines, holistic approaches, they're all out of pocket. My caregiver is out of pocket, who I rely on every single night to do my bedtime routine and stick her finger up my butt. I love it. Yeah, so anyway, it's super reactive instead of proactive, which then eventually costs everyone more, including myself. But, you know, if I get sick and I go to the hospital, that's insurance's job to pay for, right? But if I'm actively attempting to not get sick and not get hospitalized, that's all coming out of my pocket. And so the assumption is that paying for things is a drain on people's bottom line. There's evidence to support that with a proactive approach to wellness and therapy, it lessens the strain on insurance in the long run. And then some things to work on with the actual ADA itself. Nature, access needs to be improved. Training in the hospitality, retail industry needs to be better handled so that they're prepared to deal with all types of people with disabilities. And then more inclusion in the public media. It is so rare that I see someone like myself in TV shows, movies, the likes. It's you have to do something big in order for the mainstream media to pay any attention to you. I'm highlighting these problem spots here because there are many amazing organizations and groups that aim to make the world more inclusive outside of the ADA, from accessible outdoor activities to medical advice and resources to communities for support. With some digging, the options for us to feel included are growing wildly. If you have not yet seen the documentary Crip Camp on Netflix, I highly suggest watching it. It is about a camp for the disabled back in the 70s that from that camp came Judy Heumann and Denise Hoffman, who are both quoted here. And Judy Heumann especially is responsible for the ADA. She was the pioneer, the fighting voice for us all. And to learn a little bit more about her, I would highly suggest watching that documentary. Again, it's Crip Camp on Netflix. And so we have some, I wanted to put some resources up for the disabled and for the abled that may be looking to expand their horizons, open their eyes, open their mind to people with disabilities. And so up here we have a few of them, and I would just leave you guys with this information. Thank you all very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Thank
you. Thank you, Thor. No, it's always really interesting to hear everyone's unique stories. I think that we all have our own stories, and it's important that we share them, because I think that's how other people can, just people in general, we can build empathy towards each other. And appreciate Thor for sharing his story and how he's become, one of the top restaurateurs in North Carolina, which is an amazing feat despite the challenges he's had to overcome. And I think one thing I want to point out is that he does have a great partner, and that's a really important thing. So thank you, Sarah, for that as well. But now I'd like to pass it on, and we're going to show a quick video from our partners from NC State University.
Hello, I'm Sherry Schwab, Vice Provost for Institutional Equity and Diversity and the university's ADA Coordinator at NC State University. As NC State continues its week-long celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, we are proud to be co-sponsors of today's event with our peers in the Triangle region. As a land-grant institution, NC State serves the citizens of North Carolina through our teaching, innovation, research, and through cooperative extension, we reach North Carolinians of all abilities in all 100 counties. Students, faculty, and staff with diverse abilities, ideas, and worldviews come together at NC State as we think and do to solve real-world problems. The Americans with Disabilities Act promotes inclusion and diversity in our community, centering and upholding one of the university's core values. We continuously strive to create a more inclusive community for all. We're proud to share that in the spring 2020 semester, over 1,600 students with disabilities were receiving academic and co-curricular resources through our Disability Resource Office. and we seek to have even more students and employees with disabilities join our pack. I want to highlight just a few of our many programs that help serve our growing disability community. The GLBT Center has started providing sensory-friendly hours with lighting and sound adjustments to provide a more neuro-inclusive space. The Wolfpack Pickup Service provides individual transportation services to better navigate NC State's physical campus and has completed over 10,000 rides since its inception 5 years ago. And NC State's Accessibility in the Classroom course, available for faculty and staff throughout the entire UNC system, provides an introduction to digital accessibility and practical methods for incorporating accessibility into face-to-face, hybrid, and online classrooms. The concepts of what we all know as universal design were founded in part by Ron Mace during his time right here at NC State. This past year, we completed a study of our North Campus to assess our physical space so that we can continue to incorporate universal design elements. Additionally, NC State recently transferred our campus map to an interactive platform where anyone can view accessible pathways through and around our campus. NC State continuously strives to incorporate universal design principles to increase access to our classrooms, physical spaces, programs, and resources. Thanks to the ADA, NC State is a more vibrant place to learn, work, and grow. I want to say thank you again to our partners for co-sponsoring today's event. And we appreciate all of you who are joining us in celebrating this milestone of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate our partners being able to come together for this event. Right now, we do have some questions that we have from our attendees. And I learned so much throughout this conversation and discussion today. One of the questions that we got is having to do with celebrating this milestone. How is it that it is still allowed for these 14C waivers, which allow sub-minimum waivers, wage waivers for people with disabilities? Can one of our panelists answer that?
Hi, Sharon. This is John Samuel.
Oh, Woodward here.
Okay.
I work for the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities, so I'm happy to take a stab at this question. The Council on Developmental Disabilities and all councils across the country, because we have 56 in all U.S. states and territories, work to produce system change to make communities more inclusive for people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. A lot of people with IDD do work in sheltered workshops, which the question is asking about. And we want to see change happen, but change can't always happen overnight. For example, some parents have been sending their child with an intellectual disability to a sheltered workshop or a day program for the last 20 or 30 years. And if you shut that down in one night, and the parents don't know what to do. So what I'm saying is there is a lot of resistance from some parents and from some community organizations who seem to like the concept of sheltered workshops. So it's hard to shut them down in one day or right away, but we are moving toward a more inclusive society that recognizes the importance of competitive, integrated employment. And it's important to keep advocating for competitive, integrated employment opportunities where everybody is making minimum wage or higher and is valued as an employee. So everybody needs to keep advocating for that and informing their legislators about the importance of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Philip. Another question that came in is, can people with children who have disabilities still have jobs? I guess the question being is, maybe are there support services that are maybe not very well advertised or readily available for families who have disabled children, or vice versa, disabled parent, and how to provide childcare and supportive services like this? Is there one big resource that we can send people to?
I don't think so.
This is Philip again. I pointed out during my panel discussion that there's the innovation waiver that provides services for people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. It's a Medicaid waiver, so people with IDD who are eligible for Medicaid might be able to get a waiver slot. It provides all types of services, such as in-home therapies if they need one, or direct support professionals if they need that person to help them with daily activities and participating in the community. But some parents, when they give birth to a child with an intellectual or developmental disability, don't know what resources are out there. So that innovation waiver is one resource. It's important for parents whose child might need those services in the future to get them on the waiting list as early as possible. You want to contact the LME MCO in your county, and I can put that into the chat comments in just a minute. Thank you.
Also the last question, that the Association for Supported Employment First is working on that issue. It's the shelter workshop issue.
This may be a very elementary question for folks on this webinar, but can you please explain to me what that term means, that sheltered workplace?
Philip, a shelter workshop, as far as I understand it, is a place for people with disabilities to go that don't have any, that do not have a job.
Okay, so it's a place, a day program or a sheltered workshop. Thank you,
Kind of
Ellen.
like a day program.
Gotcha.
But also they get paid sometimes a penny a day, or half a cent a day.
Wow. We have another question. What are the best employers or businesses in the Triangle who are leading the way on inclusivity and empowering their employees with disabilities that we should be modeling? And I think that's a great question as we close out the Q&A. I, of course, think that LCI and LCI Tech might be one, but are there others that we could hear about?
Hi, Sharon. This is John. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. You know, I think there's several great organizations who've been really just done a great job in terms of inclusive hiring. You know, one of them is Lowe's Home Improvement. They've done a wonderful job. They're totally committed to diversity and inclusion, which includes disability inclusion hiring. And then also, I need to give a shout out to Biogen, who's really committed to this as well. Last year, during the month of October, which is Disability Employment Awareness Month, there was only 2 organizations that I know of that really held events celebrating this month, and those are Lowe's and Biogen. And we're lucky enough to have those two organizations right here in the Triangle.
That is great to know.
Also Walgreens.
Walgreens?
Also Walgreens is a good one. Also, sometimes Walmart. Depends on the Walmart.
Okay.
Sharon?
Yes.
This is Eric. I can tell you that with my training, one of the things that I do is I help provide training, particularly for people with disabilities, in becoming instructors in CPR so that they can start their own business as CPR instructors. there is an endless supply of clients who need CPR training. And since CPR is a 99% hands-on skill, this is an ideal thing for people who have the capability of getting on the floor and utilizing their hands to teach this skill to other people who are disabled as well as those who are not disabled.
Okay, Eric, thank you. And I think what we're going to do so we can be cognizant of everyone's time is we are going to pull this information from the chat as well as the Q&A. We're going to add that to the triangleada.com website so that we can have that resource available for everyone who attended today and for you to share this website to others in the community so they can also get resources as well. John, why don't you wrap it up for us?
No, thank you so much, Sharon. Really appreciate this. I want to thank all of our partners and all of you for attending this. You know, like we said, the ADA would not be possible without partners and allies, and for you just to be here today is a great first step. But I do want to give a shout out to our friend Erica Crane, who did send a video from Lowe's Home Improvement to help promote this. So thank you, Erica, for that. And then also I want to just say, thank you, a special thank you to Sharon and Landry from the Walk West team. I want to thank Brenda from the Capital Area Workforce Development Board. And I want to thank Dr. Scott and Philip from the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. And Danya and Nora from the Chamber. Thank you guys so much. Again, this would not have been possible without of you guys, but we just want to thank everyone for attending, and thank you guys. And again, this is just the first year. Again, hopefully we'll do it again and continue to celebrate the ADA here in the Triangle. But thank you guys.
Thanks, John. Thank you everyone for attending, and we appreciate you all participating and engaging with us. Again, we have triangleada.com is the website you can go to access more information and resources, and to all of our panelists and our speaker, Thor, thank you so much for your time, and happy ADA 30th anniversary, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.